she encapsulated it so beautiful. She said, it's not a resource problem, it's a priority problem. If addressing the homeless issue was a priority, then we would all be forced into a room to work together and connect, right? Because that's the only way you're going to solve any problem is all of us together. Community problems need community solutions. Once that system is working together, then you can honestly assess on what the needs are. Open this, open that. Okay, great. But like, where do they go after you?
Welcome to Henderson HQ. This is the podcast where you get all the stories behind the businesses that make our community tick. Don't forget to subscribe to our weekly newsletter. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Scott Groves with the Henderson HQ podcast and obviously our newsletter. Don't forget to subscribe to hendersonhq.com if you live in the area. Today, we're talking to my new friend, Robert Banghart, who was introduced by a previous episode, Lance, who's running for judge here in the city. And he's like, man, you really got to talk to my friend, Robert. He runs Shine a Light, which is a nonprofit here that does a ton of outreach to the homeless community. And especially when we're having flash flood warnings and we need to get people out of the tunnel system so that they are not carried away tragically. And he's like, you just got to talk to Robert. He's one of the best human beings I know in Vegas. And then before we started talking, you were talking about the work that you guys are doing with overdose awareness and detox and Narcan and all of that stuff. So Robert, why don't you just start with you? Like, tell us a little bit about you and then tell us a little bit about Shine a Light.
Yeah, of course. First and foremost, vote for Lance Hendren.
There you go. Thanks.
That's my plug. He's an amazing human being. Yeah, my name is Robert Banghart. I am the Director of Community Engagement at Crossroads of Southern Nevada. It's the largest indigent detox and treatment center in the state of Nevada. I am also the Vice President and board member for the Shine a Light Foundation, it's a local nonprofit where we go into the tunnels, build relationships through outreach with our friends that are living underground, but also parks. I mean, anything you can think of, we're out there. And just offer a way out through a peer-led model where we've been where you've been. You know, I mean, I was homeless for many years, as was many of the people involved in our foundation. And so then once they accept the help, then we have a program called Continuity Case Management, which is the unbroken chain of case management where we walk them through the next 18 months, right? And we'll get into that a little bit later. And I'm also a board member of Narcan at Night, which is just this past September was the largest overdose awareness outreach event in the state of Nevada.
You know, when I think of the homeless problem, I moved up here about 5 years ago. When I think about the homeless problem in LA, they have the highest percentage of homeless individuals in the country, and it's epidemic doesn't even like do it right, do it justice. And then I moved up here to Vegas, and you don't see as many homeless individuals. But what I then come to find out from talking to Lance and just our brief conversation is like, well, we don't see them as much because they're underground. They're living in these tunnel systems and they're building makeshift shanties and stuff like that. So do we have any reliable numbers on how big the homelessness problem is in Vegas?
I mean, I don't think we do. That's just the truth. I think the way to count it is how could you count it is a better way to say it, because what is it, first and foremost, what does it mean to you to be homeless, right? Like, I ask that question all the time in any room I go into just to kind of get an understanding where people are at. And for me, it's like your name's not on a lease. If you're living with a buddy, you could come home at any time and just decide you don't want me there anymore, right? So that we could argue that a little bit, but you get understand the point, right? That it's much bigger than what we think it is. It's not just the guy in the corner with the tent. It's not just, the people that are in the shelters. It's a massive problem that is not really understood. I think underground, we feel comfortable with like about 12 to 1,500 people live underground. But outside of that, I mean, it's almost impossible to count. They do a point in time count where they try to get their best estimate as they can, but you're dealing with a transient population. There's a lot of factors to say that you could walk around this city and get an accurate count of what the exact number is impossible.
Yeah. And the homelessness problem is not something that I have a lot of optics on. In my mind, the cynical part of my mind goes to like, well, if you're homeless, there's probably a lot of compensating factors, right? Mental health, drug addiction, bad luck, whatnot. I'm lucky enough to come from a big enough family and friend group that there were times where I was in financial hardship, especially coming out of 2008, where I lived on a couch at my uncle's house, right? Because I was like in rebuild mode. I didn't have money to pay rent. And luckily, big enough network, I always had a place to go, right? I didn't have any of those compounding effects, luckily, of drug abuse or mental health problems. But like, what tends to, when you're talking to these people, the ones that want to get help, what puts them on the cascading path to end up being homeless? Because I think that's something a lot of people don't understand. Like, what are some common variables that you see?
Again, a very complicated question.
Right.
I'm not.
I only ask hard questions.
I can see that. So I always say the same thing. I start out with some facts. You can Google this right now. 6 out of 10 Americans live one critical incident away from being homeless. Okay. So if I asked you right now, if I took away your net, right, your family, your friends, it says just Scott, you're about to be homeless, Scott. Where do you go? What would you say?
Taking away my safety net?
Yeah.
Oh, I have no idea. I mean, luckily, I'm in a position where I've got dozens of friends and family member that we could,
Right,
we,
but that's
we could
that's
come to.
typically everybody's answer.
Right.
We didn't grow up watching movies on how to be homeless. We didn't watch movies about what it was like to be homeless, right? We watched movies about being that football player or the jujitsu champion or whatever it was, right?
Right.
The narrative was never there. I walk out of my office today and I see 5 billboards, right? I got strip club, a weed dispensary, a lawyer, a diamonds, a casino. But I just told you that 60% of the country lives one critical incident away from being homeless. Another 10 to 15 are homeless. That's 75% of our country. But like, we're not honest with the truth, right? Like, where do we go? What do we do? And then, even if you did know where to start, that system doesn't work together, right? That system wasn't designed together. So there's just like this really false narrative on what's going on, And to the second part of your question, it's a myriad of things. Yeah, substance use disorder is 100% one of those main things, but then it's usually mental health and this and that. Like, there's not usually just this clear cut answer, right? Like,
Right.
maybe your wife leaves. Now you got some depression, some mental health. Maybe you turn to drugs and alcohol to cope. Maybe you got a little bit of mental health. It spirals, right? You start to circle down that toilet bowl into homelessness. So not usually is it just this one off. It's usually much because every human being is not just this or just that. We're very complicated, and I think our problems are very much the same way.
Yeah. You talk about the critical incident. This came very much into focus with me when we had kids because I was like, oh, I'm not only the primary breadwinner in our family. If my wife's going to stay home, I'm the only breadwinner in my family.
Yeah.
So if I do something stupid and, break my neck at jujitsu and now I'm a quadriplegic or I get run over by a bus or something, my wife is immediately moving back to LA and destitute and, wife and kids are living with her family. Luckily, she has family. If she didn't have that and all of them were back in Mexico, like what happens? Like where is the safety net? And then all of a sudden I got really serious about life insurance when I had kids.
Yeah.
But I can only imagine you're already living paycheck to paycheck. You have something catastrophic, medical, job loss, whatever. It's I completely agree with you that 60% of Americans are some number of paychecks, 1, 2, maybe 3
Yeah.
away from like not being able to afford rent. And that's that is a real stat that I have seen for anybody that might be rolling their eyes. That's a very real thing.
Yeah.
So where do you start, right? Because you mentioned this 18-month program, and this bugs me about most institutions, whether it's prisons or pharmacy or homelessness or whatnot. Very few people tend to have a plan. I was talking to somebody recently who got out of prison, and he's like, again, luckily I have a safety net, but they give you basically the clothes on the back and the stuff you checked in with, $50 and a bus ticket that's worth up to $200. And they're like, good luck. And I'm like, oh, no wonder we have so much recidivism because you have no job plan, no training, no safety net after you get out of prison. What if he didn't have a safety net? What's he going to turn to? He's going to go right back to crime because that's the only way he knows how to earn money quickly. Like,
How to survive.
yeah, they don't even give you enough money for like a single night at a hotel, right? So can you talk a little bit about what you guys are doing to like come up with a plan that keeps these people hopefully off the streets and out of the tunnels for good?
So at Shine, what we did was we built a true continuum of care, but the continuum of care is the community. So inherently, what happens is a lot of people, they'll open a new facility, they'll open a new this, right? They're always planting their flag and opening something new, which, I have no argument with. We wanted to do something different. So with our own experience of how the safety net had failed us, right? We don't believe there is really a safety net. That's the truth. And
Yeah.
so we said we're going to build one, particularly in the substance use disorder track, right? That's obviously close to our hearts. We started to walk around the city and build relationships with people and say, listen, we would like to refer our participants to your facility at this stage of the game or this stage of the game, but we would like you to allow us to also case manage them with you together. So instead of building a new building, we said, okay, let's look at this from outside based on our experience and let's connect these pieces to build pathways so people can go from crisis to long term stability. So, really, our program is the services that are available right now and us going out and identifying them, building relationships with them. And what it does is it allows for I'm a visual learner. I always say this, right? Like if I gave you and I both the same canvas, the same paintbrush, the same colors, we both paint different pictures. That's the point, not the problem, right? The problem is they try to make us all paint the same picture and fit in the same box. You have different life experiences than I do, different thoughts, whatever it is, right? Let's embrace that instead of dehumanizing it, right? And it allows us to, oh, hey, it's not working out over here. Okay, let's slide you over here. It gave us so many options, right? So we could take them through detox, into residential, into housing with treatment, into sober living. And at each stage, if there was a real problem and knowing the recovery, the path will not be perfect, right? It's not, you're done, get out. It's like, okay, it didn't work here. Let's slide you over here. Let's slide you here. Let's keep you connected, right? So we became the glue that connected all the pieces together, right? That allowed somebody to falter and stay connected, to succeed and go on and live beautiful lives, right? And that's the point of a safety net is to catch everybody to the best of our ability, right? Because I always tell this story. It's my favorite story, right? I got a participant who's one of my favorites, and Matt, he had a very similar experience to me, a lot of trauma. He was attacked, right? He had some mental health, and he comes in. So our program is called iPath. It's instant placement with access to treatment and housing. Instant placement means you call within an hour, we come pick you up. That's our goal. Pick you up, get you connected. Now, we're not a housing first model. We deal with substance use disorder. So we're going to get you into detox treatment surrounded where there's like some oversight, connection to clinical treatment, therapy, peer support, anything you can imagine. Matt goes into detox, the triangle engages. I always use the visual examples again. The triangle is the participant is one point, our case manager is one point, and the facility that they're at, their case manager or representative is the next point. So there's always a triangle working. So when Matt calls me from detox and says, hey, the food stinks here, you got to get me out of here, I can say, Matt, I love you, buddy, but that's not your problem today. I know, I was there. I know the food isn't great. It's not Red Lobster, but like we're trying to save your life. But because I have that lived experience, we can walk him through that moment. But also, if he calls me with the real problem, I can drive right to the facility and say what's going on. And everybody, it's cell phone numbers. It's not emails and waiting for responses. So, and in that space, we're also together as a team cultivating what the plan will be. So I'm not sitting in detox going, I don't know what's going to happen next. I know I'm going to treatment here. I'm doing this, right? And because luckily a lot of our volunteers now work within that safety net, there's just like layers and layers and layers of support. So Matt goes into housing with treatment. He completes. He had a lot of moments, right, where his head was telling him no, this or that. Some of his mental health was cropping up, but they walked him through all that. And then he goes into sober living where we pay for the first 3 months. But fast forward 2 months after he went into sober living, he's been in 7 different sober livings. He never punched anybody, never got high. He was just a big guy, socially awkward, didn't know his cues, had some mental health. So they would call us like, listen, the guys are uncomfortable. Can you get them out of here? Cool. But our working agreement says you have to give us 24 hours unless they, punch somebody or get high, right? Like, so 6 times we transitioned them. Fast forward the 7th house, something clicked. Now fast forward 3.5 years later, 2.5 years later, Matt's got a little over 4 years sober, just got his manual CDL. He came back into town to get that. Successful. He was at my birthday party on Sunday. Like, I know where he's at. But Matt in the system as it's designed is homeless right now.
Yeah, I was just going to say that having to transition and have you guys as the backup to help him transition to the right places until it did start to track for him 100%. After that first, maybe second place, he's done. He's back out on the streets and like he falls out of the system of safety nets, right? If it's not for you guys.
100%.
Hey guys, just a quick ad from our sponsors here that make this podcast and our newsletter possible. Want to give a shout out to Ethereal Med Spa, a gym for your skin. So it doesn't matter whether you're doing anything proactive all the way up to spot removal, all the way up to beautification, right, or vanity, Ethereal Med Spa, they got you covered. Scott Wright over at Wright Auto Body, love them. So anything from a scratch and dent to a big insurance job, all the way up to a custom rebuild of a classic car, they got you covered. And shout out to my buddy Casey Halstead, owner of 10th Planet Jiu-Jitsu, which now has 3 locations. They just opened a new location on the west side. So they got our Henderson location, they got a mid-city location, and they've got a west side location. So anywhere in the valley where you're looking to train jiu-jitsu, check out 10th Planet Las Vegas. Now back to the show. Again, the cynical part of my mind, I'm like, oh, with whatever system it is, I think and I believe that there is enough support, there's enough charity, there's enough government funded assets, wherever the case may be, but people just don't know how to access them. So do you feel, and we'll just use Vegas as a microcosm for this larger problem in the country, do you think that there is enough current facilities and support, and that there is enough programs? Or do we need massive more funding for those programs? Or is it really just people don't know how to access them, right? If you're a battered woman and you're leaving in a frenzy and you're trying to find a place, like the difference between you finding that place and ending up homeless is probably an introduction, right? Or somebody like you as a case manager. So do the facilities and the systems and the programs exist and they're just not getting utilized to their fullest because people don't know where to get them? Or do we need a massive amount of additional government funding, grants, charity, and whatnot to close the gap? What's the bigger problem, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Well, that was like 37 questions.
I know. I'm the worst.
No, I heard something recently that rocked my world, right? And I've kind of said something similar, but not. She encapsulated it so beautiful. She said it's not a resource problem. It's a priority problem, right? Because if addressing the homeless issue was a priority, then we would all be forced into a room to work together and connect, right? Because that's the only way you're going to solve any problem is all of us together, right? Everybody working together. Community problems need community solutions, right? So I think that once that system is working together, then you can honestly assess on what the needs are. Right now, nobody knows, right? Open this, open that. Okay, great. But like, you're one piece. What else? What do they do after you? Where do they go after you? Right? Like some people will maybe be able to go through that treatment center and be completely fine on their own because they have that safety net of good to land on. But what about the other 95% that don't? Where do they go? Maybe they stumble. There's nobody there to support them and then they're back, right? So for me, I think that it's definitely, we need to be more connected, right? And what I've always said is that there's no real oversight. Nobody knows what your treatment center is doing or what this guy, unless somebody complains, right? I'm not talking about like there's inspections, all that stuff, but like nobody on a governmental level is watching to say, hey, you guys are supposed to be working together. What's going on? Or hey, this is supposed to happen or what? There's none of that. They're all operating kind of independently, right? I think really what we were able to do is to cut that last little bit of red tape, so we became a referral source. So if you own a coffee shop and every Monday I'm in there with 20 guys and we're spending $300 and you're that Monday morning waitress, you got that table set up, you know what's coming, right? It kind of became that. And believe me, a lot, if not all the people that we work with are amazing human beings. They're all trying to do great work. But the system was designed in scarcity, that scarcity mindset, right? That as if we were in competition, but we're all overwhelmed with the amount of people in need, right? If every single person in Las Vegas that was homeless asked for help today, we couldn't help them. So yeah, the resources are needed, but it really doesn't matter until we're all working together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? To make it effective. It'd be like the cook in the back and the waitress up front and the lady ringing up the check weren't all working together. It doesn't make any sense. How does your business make any money, right? Very much the same thing with humans. Crisis intervention is great, but you need 18 months to 2 years of support, right? Imagine yourself going through a crisis and I show up and I say, hey, Scott, hope you're doing well. Good checking on you one time. You feel good. But then I leave and you don't hear from me again for 2 years. That's not really support, right? Within that umbrella also, we were able to share data, which made each of the pieces better. Because now they know where their participants are 18 months down the road. Their recidivism numbers, you know what I mean? Like all that stuff. So how do we cultivate a community of people working together, this safety net, a true safety net that is actually working together and sharing. We're sharing donations back and forth. Who's got this and got this sounding board or what's going on? You know what I mean? West Care might call me and tell me they got furniture. Hey, I might call them, tell them I got hygiene. It's every week. It's like that back and forth. Our team right now is at the Shade Tree serving lunch and helping them with their inventory. We were there Thursday to watch one of their employees win like a national advocacy award. Like we're present. You know what I mean? We're present. We're there. We're not just putting it on our website and thanks. I'll see you later, right? Like, or we're on site. And then on my way out, I'm grabbing a couple diapers to give to somebody else that I know that needs them from Shade Tree. That's what we all do, right? Back and forth. That's a safety net because there's no competition.
Right. You know, it's crazy. I coach salespeople for a living. That's what I do. And I'll end up going upstream and coaching businesses sometimes. And just like you're talking about in this program with all these resources, it's crazy how many problems boil down to just lack of communication, right? I can go
100%.
into almost any team or salesperson or company and be like, yeah, we've got all these problems. There's the number one problem is probably a lack of communication. And so it sounds like the gap that you guys are filling at Shine a Light is like, how do we get these people communicating with each other, sharing resources, and knowing like, hey, this guy's not a fit for resource A, but he might change his life with resource B.
Yeah.
So how are you doing that, right? Because these places don't have a mandate to talk to you. It's not like you're a government employee coming there and to inspect them. How have you won these places over to be like, I'm not a competitor. I'm not looking for anything. I'm just looking to be a resource, a referral source. Like how have you personally and your organization won these people over to start opening their books and opening the lines of communication? Like what's works for you?
I mean, first and foremost, it's the example that we set, right? Who are we? What are we doing? Do we keep our word? Do we do what we say we're going to do? Are we the ones showing up with donations for them too? You know what I mean? Like, and it's just building relationships. That's all it is. Because understanding that the city has been living in scarcity mindset and competition, right? You have to understand that, right? So when you walk in, I'm not in competition with you. It boils down to our entire way of move, right? Like moving. We host a lot of events. I said, listen, let's go highlight our community partners. So West Care was doing a trunk or treat already. We were doing a trunk or treat. I said, let's just make one big one, highlight them, right? And boom, that's what we do. And we just move around at our different partners to highlight them, right? Things like that. And I think that also they want to help people. Like it wasn't such a hard sell, believe me. You know what I mean? I think there was some issues like you talked about, like you have national companies, statewide companies, local companies, nonprofits. They answer to this, they answer to, there was a lot of things going on, but at the end of the day, we want to help people, right? And I think that over time, they saw the authenticity of it. They saw that we wanted to help, right? And then also who we became within the community individually and as a team, right? Laid the groundwork for it.
I want to go to the participants themselves. You know, I can only imagine whatever trauma has come up. It doesn't matter whether it's physical, mental, drug, accident, you know, I just can't imagine the despair that comes with moving from this life to a homeless life. I know me, I can get into a downward spiral of mental health pretty quickly. This sounds so trivial compared to what you deal with, but I had a back injury and like couldn't work out for like a month, and I was a asshole. I was like not kind to my family, and that was just something as simple as like not being able to work out, right? So I can only imagine if our family had a catastrophe that had us on the path to going homeless, like the amount of despair that I would feel, it would be crushing. It would be absolutely soul crushing.
Yeah.
So when you first meet some of these participants and they're in the tunnel system, they're living in a park or whatnot, how do you guys connect with them to let them know there is a light at the tunnel? Like, do you find a lot of your participants are hopeful and they're looking for help, or do you kind of have to coach them out of this moment of despair to know that there is like light at the end of the tunnel? Because if I ended up like that, I got to tell you, I would probably just stay there and not want your help and just want to die or want to numb myself with whatever substance I get my hands on, right? So how do you get somebody from where they're at to where they're going?
Um, I think what we've seen that works the best is just kindness. It's really that simple. You know what I mean? And obviously, once you open the door to the conversation, they know we're there to hand out basic supplies. We don't hand out anything that makes it easier to be homeless long term, right? But a water on a hot day, a pair of socks, right? It opens the door to a conversation, and that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have a conversation. I'm trying to get to know them. Same way I'm trying to get to know you right now. Basic conversations. And then in that space, you start to share like, yeah, I was out here too. Yeah, I know. You were out here, right? It gets them thinking. You never know when they're going to be ready. That's completely out of our control, but we want to connect and let them know somebody cares about them, that they're seen, they're heard, right? And that we've been where they've been and we know a way out. Get to plant that seed and let that fester for a little while, right? And then when the time comes, they trust us enough to ask us for help. I always share this story, right? Like we all have a gas station, right? That gas station's close to our house. We're just comfortable with, right? I went to my gas station for like 6 months straight, and there was a guy out front, and he'd always ask me for money. I don't typically hand out money. I'm not opposed to it, but I don't typically do it. But I always had a conversation with him. I always asked him how he was doing, and I always offered to take him inside, get him a drink, get him something to eat. For 6 months, I got every answer under the book. You know what I mean? Everything from get out of here, leave me alone, to oh no, thank you. You know what I mean? All good. He's in crisis. I'm not, right? And of course, the day that I'm running late, he says I'm ready. I said, all right, let's go. And when we walked through the front doors, it was like we walked into another, like, I don't know what. It was just like it was insane. It was the most beautiful interaction I've had with a human being in a long time. Laughing, joking. My stomach was sore from how much we were laughing. He poked me at one point. That's how intimate it was. Get to the register. We're like tired from laughing, right? I bag up all his stuff. I give it to him. I see him walking towards the door. Okay. I don't have any expectation of him in that moment, right? I go to finish the transaction. I see him stop at the door and I see him holding the door. And I know that feeling. I've been there. You know what I mean? He doesn't know how to close out the interaction. He doesn't know, like, it was like an overwhelming feeling of normalcy in his life in that moment, right? Like that he belonged and, right? And then he starts screaming and runs out the door. I get it. The guy behind the register who I kind of know, he starts laughing. He's like, why'd you do that? And I saw white. I was so angry, like internally, right? And I said, you tell me why this guy's been sitting outside your store for 6 months straight. And the first time someone's decent to him, he doesn't even know how to close out the interaction. You want that guy to ask for help? I said, the problem is, and this is prevalent in a lot of areas of the world, it's not us and them. It's not. It's just us. That's a human being with family, friends, whatever it is, experiencing crisis. We need to close that gap. So for that guy right there who no one's nice to ever, you're asking him to be evil Knievel and jump across the Grand Canyon to accept help. That's what it feels like, right? But imagine if he had had 100 interactions like the one he had with me. He feels a lot closer, right? A lot closer to normalcy, a lot closer to being a part of. And then when the time comes, it's just another step. And he believes, right? Unfortunately, what we've done in our city and a lot of areas, I love Las Vegas. They're not the enemy. They're in crisis. Who cares why they're there, right? Like that's we're looking for reasons to justify why we're unwilling to do something about it, right? The truth is that's somebody's mother, somebody's brother. What would you want to happen if that was your mom? That was your brother, your cousin, whatever, right? Like people go through things. We all go through things. Like they're having a human experience just like us, and they deserve to be treated like humans, regardless of their reaction. When I have a headache, am I the nicest person in the world? You hurt your back and you said you were rude to your friend, right? It's like we're all guilty of that. And those aren't real crises. A headache's a headache. Go away, right? Like now imagine your entire world has collapsed. You've lost your family. You're addicted. All these things. Like I have zero expectations of their behavior or actions.
Yeah.
It's on me to be a good example. It's on me to connect with them and on us as an organization. And we do that in an infinite amount of ways. Try to make people feel seen and heard because they are worth it.
Yeah. That really, to me, it brings clarity to me because I remember reading, I don't know, some report or something from LA when I was living there where it's like, if you're in LA and if you're willing to be helped, and if you're willing to go down the path to get sober, the average homeless person in LA is homeless for about 48 hours. If all these things are in place, right? Like there's centers, there's shelters, there's whatnot. So to me, I was always like, well, if it helps only 48 hours away, like why do we have such a problem? This is ridiculous. It must be all them. It must
And
be
you just said it. If you ended up in the tunnel, you would probably just
Exactly.
stay there and die.
Exactly. Because like you just said, they're not ready to take that step because of how much everything has collapsed. So it's like, great. Like the solution can be right there. If I'm not willing to reach for it because of what's going on in my head, doesn't matter how many solutions are there. Also, changing my frame on how I look at things. For some reason, coaching attracts a lot of people that are sober because they saw in their life that they could get help here with a sobriety program or coaching or AA, and they're like, oh, maybe that would work for my business too. So I've gotten to know a lot of people that are sober anywhere from 7 months to 27 years. And talking to one of my friends who goes into the jail system in LA and does AA meetings, and he's a saint of a guy. He's been sober for about a decade, and he really gives back to the community. He's like, hey man, he's like, for a lot of people, drug addiction, alcohol, it's a disease. He's like, you wouldn't be mad at somebody for having cancer, or you wouldn't be mad at somebody for having shingles. It's pretty much the same thing. Like being angry at these people because of this disease, where for this moment in time they can't control themselves. It's a waste of your energy, and it's no good for them either, right?
Yeah.
And what he would say is, you can't help any of these people until they're ready to get help. So you mentioned being kind and starting a conversation. When do you see people be willing to jump that Grand Canyon like Evil Knievel? Like what happens with your guys' relationship or with them, or what have you found triggers people to like, okay, I am ready to get help and make that leap, right? Because like you said, you have no expectations. You can't help them until they want to be helped.
Yeah.
What have you seen like helps them get over the mountain?
I mean, there's an infinite amount of reasons, right? Something happens internally where they just get tired of it, right? And hopefully our efforts in connecting with them has helped to close that gap, right? They're walking their path, and hopefully they get to a place where, it could be anything, right? It's hot, it's cold, a bad day, an argument, anything. Literally, we could sit here for the rest of the day talking all
Yeah.
day, but the call comes, right? And then we're there. We have to get them right there because it's fleeting.
Yeah.
Loneliness is fleeting, and you're asking them essentially to leave everything they know, right? Even though now we look at it and go, that's only a mattress and a sleeping bag and whatever it is, right? But it's their world. And I think people forget that. Like my world had become so small when I was homeless that it was like a backpack and a bike, and that was it. That was it. Like literally, that was my entire world. I didn't care about anything else in the world, and didn't use a phone for 5 years. Didn't sleep on a bed for 5 years. Didn't eat 3 hot meals in a day for 5 years. Didn't shower for 5 years. I mean, literally every single thing that I do today, I hadn't done for 5 years. I can't live my life today without Google Calendar. I'm lost. My world had become so small. So you're asking them to leave their world, come with us. Hopefully, we're going to help them out the way we said, right? Hopefully. And that takes time to build that trust, right? And the worst thing is what if you come with us, it doesn't work out? Then you got to start all over again. Then you got to come back out here and start the whole grind. It's like there's a lot happening. You know what I mean? And thankfully for us, we've been at it for a long time now. And we've gotten a lot of people out where they've come back and said, yeah, it's for real. And like, we look for little ways to build that authenticity outside of just building the relationship. Is like, I remember one day I walked up on a tunnel and there was a guy in there. He had broken his leg and the bandages were falling apart. And I said, let me take you back to the hospital. Let's get this fixed up. I'll bring you back. I'm not going to kidnap you, right? And I did. Those kind of actions carry weight because they know these guys aren't here for anything else other than to help us. You know what I mean? And they are us, right? So we're just stacking layers of authenticity on top of it to hopefully help. But again, I was never going to come in. I knew exactly where to go. I had been sober before. And I was like you, like, I'm just going to stay down here and die. You know what I mean? So it's a very tricky narrative. Like, I couldn't get you to do something I didn't want you to do right now today,
Right.
let alone, you know what I mean? So,
And my life is great, right? By
yeah.
all measurable, by everything measurable, my life is great.
Well, think about this. If I came to you right now and said, Scott, look, love the property, love the house, love your story. Looks like everything's going great. Here's the deal. Leave everything you know right now. Come with me, and I'm going to show you how to live a life that's 20 times better than the one you're living. You coming?
No, no chance.
So why is it any different for them out there? Just because I perceive it differently doesn't mean it's not the same.
Right.
That's their world. That's what they're used to. We're humans. We live in a space where what we're used to, right? Like to me now looking at it, I'm like, oh my God, it's chaos. But there was a time when I was completely, that was just normal to me. I'd walk around with a big axe and I mean, insanity, right? Like, but it becomes normal. You don't just fall into that. You slip slowly into it. You know what I mean? 1,000 paper cuts gets you to a place where that's your normal. And now I'm telling you, go to detox. You're going to withdraw from whatever it is you're using, which is a painful process. Then we're going to rebuild your entire life from scratch. And if you leave, you got to come back out here and start all over. So it is a leap of faith, right? That you're going to, that we're for real, because we are, right? But like, you don't know that at the time, right?
Right.
Anybody
For
can,
all they know, you're an undercover cop who's there to take him to jail.
yeah. I mean, I think they know we're not that, but like, right. It's just a big leap is essentially what it is. And that's after, building a relationship, them coming to the office for clothes, them coming to the office for water and socks, and us giving them a cigarette and joking around with them and getting to know their name and blah, blah, you know what I mean? Like, it's still hard.
Yeah.
I think how hard is it to go back to the gym after you haven't gone to the gym for a while?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now take that to 1,000 times.
Yeah. What what would you like to see? Obviously, we'll put up all the links and everything for people that want to donate to the organization, which I'm going to when we're done here. But let's just talk about the very basic human interactions. And, obviously there's safety concerns and all kinds of stuff like that. But person watching this podcast comes across somebody homeless, wait outside the gas station asking for money. What would you like to see from society as far as like, hey man, you don't need to be their best friend. You don't need to put yourself at risk just in case there is drug use or whatever going on. But like, what would you like to see from society in those interactions that will bring you closer in your interactions to getting them off the streets?
I would say the truth is always internal, right? Like, how do you want to be treated in your worst moment, right? I believe this, right? I can't ask for things if I'm not willing to give them, right? If I want to be treated kindly on a bad day, or if I want to be forgiven, I have to be willing to forgive, right? It's very much the same space with that. Like, I think a lot of people talk about how they want to change, fix the city or fix this. And it's like, okay, what are you going to do? Right? Like, it's not anybody's individual responsibility to fix all the problems. Connection is key. Good morning. Look them in the eye. Good morning. I don't have any money on me right now, but I just want to say hi. Simple, right? Let them feel seen and heard, but do that with a way that you understand that they're in crisis. I wouldn't walk into a surgery, the guy's got his heart's out of his chest and judge him for the way he's reacting. Why is it any different with this, right? Because it's addiction and mental health, we have these stigmas and these judgments on it. Because, if I have cancer, I'm not going to army crawl into my parents' bedroom and steal their jewelry to get my next fix. It looks very different. I understand that, but like, these are sick human beings that need our help, and bridging that gap. I always use the analogy of like the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts with all their badges, right? Like, if I was to tell you how many people were kind to me that got me to a space where I was finally willing to accept help, it would probably fill this room. You know what I mean? And that's the point. How do we do that? How do we connect? How do we make them feel a part of? You know what I mean? It's simple acts of kindness carry the day always. You know what I mean? If you can't afford something, then say hi. If you can't give them a water, then good morning. Compliment their shoe. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, look for some way to make them feel seen and heard. Like, I can remember like the experiences I had on the streets where certain people would go out of their way just to say hi. In that moment, maybe I didn't receive it as much as I should have. You know what I mean? But later on, I'd be like, huh. You know what I mean? There's a lot of stuff that happens internally that I don't know that we could even process. We're in crisis to the same degree, but later on, when we're able to reflect, we look back and we go, oh, and it's hard because we're not all working together. That's the truth. You know what I mean? We're just not all working together. And there's a lot of strong opinions on it and all these things. But like, at the end of the day, we got to roll our sleeves up and fix this because it's not going anywhere. No one's coming to save us.
Right.
Right. This is a Las Vegas problem that Las Vegas needs to address. Las Vegas needs to work together. Right. You're not going to fix it. I'm not going to fix it. But the two of us together, we could probably paint that wall a lot faster than I could by myself.
Right.
And that's the point, right? Like, get involved. Look for things that you can do to help out.
If you could wave a magic wand and fix something at the system level, right? And you already kind of alluded to it with communication and sharing resources. If you just wave a magic wand, would it be a database? Would it be, like you said, somebody overseeing the system, either at the nonprofit or governmental level? Like, if you could have your way and fix one major problem with this kind of dysfunctional system, what would it be?
Off the top of my head, I think I would make sure that all funding was tied to cohesion. That if you receive monies, you have to be willing to work with everybody, and then to be able to report that who you're working with and what's going on. Because I think a lot of times what happens is like somebody might go somewhere, but then you don't know where they are later on. How do we check on them? How do we find out? If he lost his phone, we don't have his number anymore. How do we find that person to know they're still doing well, right? And that was kind of a big piece of our continuity case manager. Right? We joke a lot on our graduations. We're like, "That's amazing! Congratulations! I'll see you tomorrow." Like we want to build that trust within them that they're just going to be a part of it in whatever capacity works for them. Right? Everybody's different, but there's a reason why I know where Matt is today.
Mhm.
You know, it's not because I'm doing anything particularly great. It's because the organization is connecting and creating this tribe mentality of like you're a part of something. You're not alone, right? Like I walked into the office, I don't know, maybe like 6 months ago, and there's a guy in the office, and I recognized him, but I didn't really remember his name. We started chatting, and he had been through a treatment center that I worked with before. He wasn't even a participant of ours. I apologize. He was a participant. Graduated. He decided not to stay connected with us. Okay, no problem, right? We're here if you need us. Fast forward 2 years later, here he is, and I'm like, catching up with him. What's going on in his life? And he goes, "Man, I lost my job." I go, "Let me get this straight. So 2 years of not talking to us, you lost your job. You came here." He goes, "I knew you guys would help me." That's it. That's a safety net because now also he's educated, right, on what to do if something happens.
Right.
There's a real safety net because he doesn't have family. He doesn't have any of that stuff, and that's the point, man. Because I think about this a lot. Like, if that was my brother, my sister, whoever, somebody close to me, like, how would I want them treated, right? And I think that's at the core of what we do, right?
I have so many questions. I could go a million different directions, but when you talk about this 18-month continuity path and you guys basically being the third leg on the stool to make sure they stay engaged, can you talk about, and I'm sure it's different for everybody, what kind of like a traditional path might look like? Because like you mentioned, for a lot of these people, it starts with detox, but at the end of the day, you can't support them forever. So I'm sure it, ends with some type of job training or job placement. Can you kind of walk through you get a new participant today, what might the next 18 months look like?
Sure. So we have 4 phases in our program. All of them are non-punitive. Your first phase would be your introductory phase, where we're getting you connected, seeing what your needs are. And it's really important to say this: everybody's phase one is different because everybody is different, and that's okay, right? And you'll go through detox, possibly residential treatment, inpatient, depending on the clinical assessment.
What is residential
The
treatment?
residential would be, I went through residential when I first came in. It's like, can't leave, clinically driven, right? You're still case managed, ID, birth, social, doctor's appointments, all of that, but you're kind of under more intense care.
Got it.
It allowed me to take on the world slower, right? I didn't have to go out and get a job and worry about, I couldn't, I wasn't in that space. And then from there, you go into housing with treatment, which is your typical treatment center, right? We house you, feed you, you do clinical treatment, PHP, IOP, all that. Also case manage the entire way, birth, social, driver's license, whatever it is. And then from there into sober living, where we pay for the first 3 months. So as the phases escalate along, you are job training is a part of it, employment is a part of it, right? Connecting you with the community is a part of it, right? So the goal is after 3 months, you're self pay in sober living.
After how long?
3 months.
3 months your self-pay,
Yes.
meaning there's insurance resources or they get a job
No,
or what?
no. You've gone through detox, residential housing with treatment. That's 5 months right there. Now you're in sober living. That's 3 months. So in housing with treatment, you can get a job. So you're looking for a job back here with their case manager, our case manager. We're both trying to figure out where we can place you. And we got a lot of great connections for, your beginner jobs, right? And then once you're going to sober living, now we're paying for 3 months. So you've gotten 6, 7 months without having to worry about paying rent. We're getting you going to get you that get well job, to get your feet moving. And it's flexibility, right? We can put in for a grant, a request for an extension, right? Obviously, everybody's different. Some people come off earlier, dependent. So that's the goal. And then at the end, independently housed, we probably got 150 people in independent housing right now. But independent housing as we deem it, right? Like I lived in sober living for 3 years. I just liked it. I had my own studio. I didn't really need the structure, but I kind of liked being in the community mindset. It was cool. Everybody's very different.
And what kind of jobs, like where are you reaching out to companies that need entry level jobs that are willing to take, a chance on somebody that's previously been homeless or had a myriad of other issues? Like where are you making those connections with potential employers?
I think it's our team is very good examples within the community first and foremost, and all the things that they're doing. So they're connecting with people. Like, Goodwill is a great partner of ours. We've got our participants all over the city working with Goodwill. They've always been very good to us. And then it's like call center jobs. I mean, anything you could think of, literally. Like if I was coming here to do a presentation of your job, I would be talking to you. Hey, do you guys have any entry level? You know what I mean?
Right.
We're always on the hustle for those because, they switch and move. We have a great net of people within. So we're in tons of group chats. Hey guys, anybody know anybody hiring? Anybody looking for this? And then we're at every job fair there is. So
You mentioned something about when they're back in stage 2 or stage 3, you're just trying to do the basics, right? Get them a social security card, get them an ID. I have, effectively speaking, an infinite number of resources. Internet, I have a wife that will do my paperwork. I have an assistant. It was a nightmare
yeah,
for me to get my real ID because I had to get request a copy of my birth certificate from Glendale, California. And then I also wanted to have my little veteran identifier. So then I had to find a way to chase down with the VA, my DD 214, which then you can only get on the internet by registering over here. Like for me, and I do pretty well, to get a real ID was a nightmare.
now
I
imagine
can only
because
imagine
you're in crisis.
you're in crisis,
Yeah.
you have no cell phone, you have no internet, like, just the simple task of getting ID probably feels completely insurmountable
Yeah.
to somebody who's coming into a program off the streets. So, like, what other kind of stuff do you do like that to set them up for a quote unquote, normal life or availability to get a job?
The vital documents for us is relatively easy. Every once in a while, you have a hard case. We have a lot of good partnerships. We do financial literacy. We have a great partnership with like Employee NB, where we have people that are maybe prison, maybe don't have the skill set yet, where we can connect them to jobs. Nobody in our program is unemployed unless they choose to be. You know what I mean? Like it's very easy to get them in. I think the point is to get them in, get them moving, and then the fire starts brewing, right? What are you interested in, right? We're meeting with them weekly in the beginning, obviously, and it's what are you passionate about? What do you want to do? The get well job is great. We want to get some money in your pocket. You want some cigarettes, you want to be able to pay your rent. But what is it that you want to do with the rest of your life? In our women's program, we have one of our pillars is called Wings, Women Inspiring New Growth and Strength, and we have a partnership with Debbie Isaacs with Unshakable. She does women-led career development. She does very much the same thing, right? Think about being a mom, kids and all that. You don't want to work at 7-Eleven forever. And there's nothing wrong with that. But like, you want to know that you have a chance to really provide and take vacation, all the things, right?
Right.
She helps with all that. And she does an amazing series called I Am. It's like how to not date a jerk, how to dress for an interview, right? Like all the simple things. And then we do Dad's Inc. also, same thing for the fathers. He's also a resource for employment where he helps fathers coming in with the legal system, child support, all the different things they face, how to be a dad, and we lean on the community. That's the truth, right? There's a ton of workforce development out there that are willing to work with you if you're willing to go out there and chase them down.
Yeah. Just because this segment of the population is near and dear to my heart, I would feel silly if I didn't ask. What percentage of the people that you're working with are veterans? Because I'll tell a story. Somebody I had on a previous iteration of this podcast. He was a veteran, and by all outside optics, life was pretty good. Things were together, but he was a special forces guy that saw some horrific stuff. And he's like, until I got therapy, every time I walked by a gun, which is problematic because he taught firearms training, he's like, my first instinct was just put it in my mouth and blow my head off.
Uh,
He's like that was my default setting. He's like, I never did it. I never felt like I was a risk to my family, but like suicidal ideation was like my baseline. And he goes, God forbid I'd either gotten addicted or in a bad relationship or whatever. He's like, I very much could have gone down the path of being a homeless veteran because of where my mental headspace was until about 8 years later. He finally decided to get treatment and therapy and whatnot. So, do you see a big cross section of the homeless being veterans?
I don't know about a big cross section. We have a great partnership with U.S. Vets and my friend Jimmy Pew Pew. He works specifically for U.S. Vets and does outreach with us. And then also once they come in, a lot of times what happens is they don't identify as vets right away. But once they're in and they meet with the case manager, then we find out, and then we're able to connect them with as many resources we possibly can, as they should be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because vets do have a fair amount of resources. Some of them might even be eligible for whatever, medical or
Yeah.
all kinds of stuff. So
It's also a tricky game
how so?
with the seems to be a harder process, right? The VA and all that. As you're already shaking your head. Yeah. I mean, that's
I already know where you're going with this. We need this form in triplicate sent to 4 different departments, and
Yeah.
et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, that's rough.
but all worth it.
Yeah.
The vets should have every resource available to them at all times. But we have great partnerships. We really do. That's the key. So it's like we stay focused on what we do in a general way, and then fill in the parts with our partners because they are better at it. I don't want to be a veteran specific program. That's not really my wheelhouse. But let me go to the guys that really know what they're doing and bring them in with us. They can learn from us on how we do this. We can learn from them. That's the key, right? That would make each other better. That iron sharpens iron.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit about the Narcan and the drug awareness and the overdose awareness work that you guys are doing? Because I don't have as much optics up here in Vegas as I did in LA when I was helping some organizations, but fentanyl, obviously just brutal. It's just not my world. Have had the benefit of not being addicted to anything except for nicotine. I currently have a nicotine pouch in my mouth right now because I can't get off of these damn things. But can you talk a little bit about the drug awareness, the overdose awareness that you guys are doing, and what does that look like to go talk to a population of homeless about what could happen?
So Narcan at Night is its own nonprofit we filed this year. We about 3 years ago we got a call out from a national organization based locally that a day of service. They're a recovery style organization. They're great friends of ours. We said, okay, we're going to do Narcan at Night. And we started out the first year was like, I think we had 70 people. Next year we had like 150. And then this year past we had 574. So it's growing to match. It was really a call out to the opioid epidemic and the fact that our overdose stats are not going down in Las Vegas and Nevada in general. And we wanted to do something to raise awareness and connect people to it. And, it was just an outreach event where we're walking around the city, talking to business owners and anybody and everybody. We've got some stationaries, but it's trying to cover all the hot spots as best we can, right? Raider Stadium, we're down by the center, we're over by West Care, we're Fremont downtown, obviously a massive area. And then it's just about education. I think it's inherently what I see is the problem is not that people don't care. They don't even know they're supposed to care. They don't even know that the problem is what it is, right? You see something on the news, that's one thing. It's another thing when, somebody in your family overdoses, right? I get 3 or 4 calls a week from different places that somebody passed away, and like education is key, keeping it at the forefront and letting people know that it's here because it's something we should all have in the car, something, right? Somewhere, because you never know when it's going to happen, right? Knowing the amount of fentanyl that we have in this country and the way that it's affecting this generation of wiping out so many people, to say that we don't, it's crazy, I always argue this. Like, drugs have been around forever, literally forever, right? We have yet to propose one solution to stop drugs. How long are we going to keep fighting that battle, right? It's just an optics thing. Oh, look at me, I'm tough on crime. And it's like,
Yeah,
it's not going anywhere.
right.
If it can get into the prisons, it can get in anywhere.
Yeah, the classic line is like, we had a 30-year war on drug and we lost.
100%. The narrative needs to change. Right? It needs to be education. We need to understand that it's here and it's not going anywhere. I'm not saying stop fighting, the drugs that are coming in and all that. I'm saying add the piece in the back end, knowing that like your solution ain't working, right? I mean, it's insane to think the amount of overdoses that we've had in Nevada in the past, decade, 20 years, to think that these systems still work. If that was any other line of work, we'd all be out of work. But for some reason, we keep accepting these same solutions of the not in my backyard. Oh no, we don't have that problem. It's ignorance, right? Because the truth is, you all have it. Somebody is affected by this, whether they're willing to admit it or not. They are, right? And 70% of overdoses happen at home alone. That means while your kids you're watching TV downstairs, while you're in the car, in the tunnel, behind the park, right? Whoever in the bathroom. That's where they happen, and to imagine and I hate to be this person, but imagine you're at home and somebody you love and care about is dying of an overdose in the bathroom, but because you're too, oh, it will never happen to me, and too prideful, you don't have it.
Yeah.
What are you going to do?
So you guys are supplying Narcan as a
Yes,
solution.
overdose awareness kits, fentanyl test strips, xylazine test strips. Xylazine's obviously been pretty prevalent in Nevada as well. So
What is that? I'm sorry.
xylazine's just the next wave of drug.
Xylazine?
Xylazine.
So it's like fentanyl plus?
Yeah, it's like the next step. Not there's another one out now that's hitting that purple fentanyl. So I mean, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a comedian in Austin, and we'll just say that the Austin comedian crowd partakes in a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
And the problem out there was so bad, the comedy club started having fentanyl strips for testing kits in the green rooms because they're like, well, we know you're going to do it. So we want to make sure that you're not ODing on stage in front of, a crowd of our patrons. And it's like, if it's that prevalent in the comedy circle where all these people are housed and they've all got a life, right? They have time to do something like comedy. I can only imagine how bad it is on the street. So
50 times more powerful than heroin.
fentanyl is 50 times more powerful than heroin.
A literal pencil head could kill you.
Oh,
And it's in everything now, So I think the awareness piece is like the acceptance of like it's here. We accepted that we were running out of water, right? And we put all these restrictions on it. We accepted that we wanted paved roads. We had orange cones all over the place, right? But we don't accept the fact that our kids are dying from this wave of overdoses, and our solution is tougher punishment. Like they're sick. They don't need punishment. That's the last thing they need, right? And I'm not saying that people who do things shouldn't be punished, right? I'm just saying that you think about if I'm an addict and I get arrested tomorrow, I am receiving no treatment while in jail. I'm just being stored. And then I'm released to the streets. What's going to happen, right? There's no reform in prisons and jails, right? I shouldn't say none. Hope for prisoners in the prisons, I understand. But the holistic approach needs to be that. These people are all getting out. 95, 96% of people in prison are getting out. How do we prepare them to get out as opposed to just open the door and kick them out and say, good luck?
right.
The insanity that we wouldn't have massive recidivism. It's like ignorant. Of course we do.
Right.
Again, the system is not set for success. So we don't want them to succeed because that's not a priority. But prisons is the number one business in America. We literally have more people incarcerated right now than Stalin and what's the Mao Zedong, whatever in China, combined right now. I need to hear stuff like that to understand the truth of what's really going on, right? Like they don't want us to recover. They don't want us to succeed. And not because they won't tell us they want that, but because their actions don't say that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all that really matters. You could be dead silent to me, but you always show up to support me. That's how I know you want me to win. Your words not match with action.
How can people help? Do you guys need more money, more volunteers, more supplies? I'm sure it's all of it. But, somebody that might be watching this or somebody that wants to advocate for like your organization, how do you like to people to best get involved and help?
I mean, we're a nonprofit. And just to be clear, 92 cents of every dollar donated to us goes to our participants in programming. Third party audit, 92 cents. So your money.
And by the way, I have to bring this up because it's one of my biggest pet peeves. If you donate to a nonprofit and you don't look them up on some type of website to see what type of percentage, I think by law, only like 25 or 30% of funding has to go to the actual end goal. So I've looked some of these nonprofits up before that I'm thinking of donating to, and like some god awful amount, well over 50% goes to marketing and salaries. And it's like, oh, so this is just kind of like a Ponzi scheme of you guys paying yourself. And I'm sure they do some good work on the back end. But when I hear about a nonprofit where like 92% is actually going to the participants and not salary, marketing, some type of kickback to your own third party company or whatever, that's an amazingly high stat.
Yeah.
Like you guys are crushing it. So
it's personal to us. This is us. You know what I mean? I graduated from this program. So we understand, and this is our legacy to the city, right? Like an amends to the city for everything that we did. We want to create this thing that long after we're gone, it's still here helping people, right? Like to think that I could ever, or, Paul, myself, Jeff, like.
So how can people help? Money, obviously.
Yeah, money. Obviously, we're a nonprofit. I'm always asking for money, but I mean, for me, what I always think about is like, if you could donate $20 a month, like you don't think it makes a difference, but 200 people donating $20 a month is a lot, right? And it's those little things that make a difference. And then also supplies. We're always looking for supplies: socks, water, wipes, socks, water, granola bars. Come volunteer your time. We got a kit building on Wednesdays at 4:15 that we call our entry level gig because it's literally anybody can show up, kids, grandma. It's very friendly, right? Build the kits for the weekend, right? But it's an impactful part. Without it, we wouldn't have outreach.
When do you do that? And where is that at?
Wednesdays at 4:15 at 2330 Highland Drive.
And is that a business or do you guys have an office location there?
That's our office. Yeah.
Okay. 2330 Highland Drive.
Yeah.
How far away is that from here? I'm not.
It's like Saharan 15.
Okay, cool. Pretty close. So you guys do a supply building every Wednesday at 4:15. Come in,
Yeah.
give back to the community, bring some supplies, socks, granola bars, water,
Yeah.
and wipes.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously money.
Yeah.
And then I know Lance does a lot of volunteer work with you guys. As we mentioned, what kind of additional volunteers are you looking for, right? Because like I have no optics into this world. I don't know how I would have a conversation with somebody,
But that's the problem. You're wrong.
Okay.
We've had that conversation today. You welcomed me.
Yeah.
You're very friendly. I got to know you a little bit. That's all I'm doing out there. I'm going out announcing that we're there. As soon as we announce that we're there, they know us.
Yeah.
We built that relationship, and they come out, they'll joke, and we have paper routes, we call them, right? Everybody has their own paper route, and I'm the lead in my paper route, and everybody in my paper route knows me. They know I like to joke around. They know I like to talk a little shit. You know what I mean? Like, so they'll come out, oh, it's Rob. Oh my God. You know what I mean? Or they'll come out with their fists up. Today's the day I'm going to kick your butt. You know what I mean? Like joking, because that's the relationship. You know what I mean? And that's the key. But like, kindness is a universal conversation language. They may see something in you that they don't see in me. You might remind them of somebody that was good to them, or a brother or cousin. Who knows? I have no idea. Your energy. Who knows? Right? It's just about being friendly and connect. Hey, how you doing?
I have divisive energy. 50% of people love me. 50% of people really hate me. So,
all right. We'll put you with somebody else so you can bounce back and forth.
Okay.
I personally have been doing this for 7.5 years. There's plenty of times when I walk up to somebody, start talking to them, and then somebody else walks up and they just connect with them better. Okay. I just keep going. I don't even say anything. I just kind of drift away. It's not about me. That person is feeling something in that moment. That's what we're here for. Let's keep going.
That's amazing. Give everybody the website where they can participate, where they can help.
So website is shinealightlv.com, and you can fill out a little form to volunteer. It gets emailed to us directly.
Well, hey, I appreciate you being on here and one, sharing your story, two, helping me reframe in my mind the problem. Like, this is why conversations are important like this. I'll send everybody your way. We'll make sure we put you in the newsletter and whatnot, and hopefully drum up some help for you.
I appreciate you.
Thanks for being here, Robert.
Of course.
Hey, it's Scott Groves with the Henderson HQ podcast. I hope you got something out of that episode. If you enjoyed it, please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the podcast. It really helps the show grow. And by the way, if you are a business owner or you know a business owner who has an interesting product, service, or just an interesting backstory, please get in touch with us. Email us at thehendersonhq@gmail.com. We would love to interview you because that's what this show is all about. It's about building community, supporting local, individually owned businesses, and just making Henderson a great place to live. And don't forget, go to hendersonhq.com and make sure you sign up for our newsletter. We send out a once-a-week newsletter, no spam, about the most interesting local businesses, hotspots, restaurants, community events. Thanks for watching the show. Really appreciate you.